How
Boom.
are you?
Bada boop. Bada bing.
Bada boop. Bada boom.
Bada boom. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so proud of you. I think you're a really important voice in this next season in the true crime world. And I think that you need to be doing more live streams. People want to hear from you. You have a voice that matters. That's important. You encourage me. You encourage many others. You have an expertise that many of us don't have an opportunity to speak into. And if I were you, I'd rely and lean a little bit on your medical background. It's a perspective that I can't bring. But you do it while infusing the power of the Holy Spirit in the middle of it. It's special. It's unique. It's
Oh,
amazing. And
wow.
you're such a blessing to me. So thank you for having me on your very first show.
Oh my goodness, I'm so tickled. And I don't know if you were, I know you were in your live, but I was saying to the chat that it's because of your ministry that I really got the courage to tender my resignation in my employ job. And then last week I started my little solo practice in integrative psychiatry, biopsychosocial spiritual model. I have one patient so far, and we're just going to take it step by step. But you were the one that said, you know, you have to lean forward into your destiny, and boom.
Right.
So I
That's right.
appreciate it.
And I know a
Yeah.
little bit about the psychiatry practice,
Yes,
but
tell me.
obviously not much from a practitioner standpoint. But I work for a psychiatrist and have been involved in his leadership meetings for several years now.
Huh?
Considered a part of sort of the mechanisms in which growth, expansion, and that kind of stuff happen. And so very interesting what you're doing, and it's much needed. My understand what's going on in the psychiatric field. There's definitely different ways in which you take on patients and how you handle them. And the psychiatrist that I work for believes in a model of making sure everybody gets very good quality care. So every single meeting when somebody comes in is at least an hour long.
Mhm.
And that's really important because a lot of psychiatrists do 10 minutes, fill out a prescription, and hand it in, and they're not getting the proper care that one needs. And there is definitely an opportunity in our culture for people who are loving, patient, and want to walk on a long-term therapeutic journey. And that's what you're doing, and you're going to be overwhelmed with business, I have a feeling.
So cute. That would be great. Look, I just want to look now. No, I'm excited, Tyler. I'm really,
Yeah.
really excited. So now I want to. Oh, the interview room. Yes, hi. He was very instrumental when I first was on these true crime. Tyler, I wanted to put you on the spot, if I might. And I don't know if all these folks, probably everybody came from your channel. I don't know, but could you give us a thumbnail sketch of who you are?
Mhm.
And then I'm going to ask you a couple of questions
Sure.
around the college age adolescent child
Yeah.
based on your youth ministry experience.
Yeah. Well, my name's Tyler Filler, and I've served my whole entire adult life in vocational ministry, initially as a youth pastor for several years, and then for the past 6 years, all the way until the beginning of 2021 as a lead pastor of a growing church in Southern Illinois. And I got really sick with COVID and ended up stepping away from that. At the same time, the Lord gave me an idea to launch a YouTube channel, and I didn't really want to do it. And it was about secular topic, in particular, talking about the Gabby Petito and Bryan Laundrie case. Bryan Laundrie had stopped at a gas station next to my house. I had no
Oh,
plans or preparations myself of wanting to do a stream on that. I had no idea what it even meant to do a YouTube stream. I wasn't in the YouTube world. I was totally immersed in ministry. I had a love for sports. I gave it up for the Lord and for ministry. I knew nothing about the secular world. I knew nothing about true crime YouTube channels. I paid zero attention to any of that stuff because I was so focused on what the Lord was doing. But I was bedridden essentially with long COVID stuff around the time that the Gabby Petito case sort of popped open. And then Bryan Laundrie stopped at the gas station by my house, and I had been on a rabbit trail. And then I just felt like the Lord told me, you need to stream about this. You need to do a stream about this. And so I did my first stream. I think it got like 300,000 views. I don't know how that happened. And so from there, the Lord just built it out. And now we use what we do on YouTube as an opportunity to share the gospel. So we present true crime cases. Right now, we're diving into the Idaho 4 case, which is the subject sort of your stream today. And we use it as an opportunity to build relationships with people, and we invite them to our Faith Friday service, and we share the gospel with them there. I have a bachelor's degree in public relations, a master's degree in business, and I also am in process of getting another advanced degree in the Bible. And so I'm in seminary, currently on again, off again in seminary, but I'm pretty far down the line, almost done with a master's degree in the Bible. And so I don't know, maybe I'll do a THD program. I also have some graduate education in counseling. And so over halfway through with a counseling degree. So I've done a lot of education stuff. You're muted, by the way.
I know.
Oh,
I didn't want to, because I was going, oh my, oh this, and I didn't want to interrupt
yeah.
you with that, but I didn't know about the counseling piece or the Bible piece. One thing that struck me the very first couple of times I ever came onto your live chat was your interviewing skills. And I was like, I need to learn more from this man.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that caught my attention that you do invariably, no matter who you or whom, whatever you interview, the last question you always ask is, now, is there anything else more that you wanted to add about yourself? Or is there anything else more that you have thoughts about?
Yeah.
And oh, thank you, Debbie Campbell. I'm shocked that I'm getting these big, what are they called? Super chats. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that about you. And is that part of when you said you're a public speaker or what?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me again what you said business and what was
public relations was my bachelor's degree. And in particular, I was drawn while doing my bachelor's program in public relations, I was really drawn to crisis communication. And so I have a few clients that I pick up. Most of the time, I have non-disclosure agreements with them, so I'm not allowed to talk publicly about them. I don't mention them ever, but I have a few clients that I work with in crisis communication, and so these are clients that are experiencing some pretty difficult situations, and so I do some work in crisis communication, but I don't talk about it often because I'm literally not allowed to talk about the cases that I'm working on.
No, that's okay. Yeah. I think I did take a crisis communication. I worked for a crisis agency, let's put it that way, in college, and I learned a lot, but I'm sure there's far more now that it's been 40 years since I did that. But is that where you learned some of your interviewing skills, do you think?
I think in the counseling school, because they teach you about techniques to get more information out of people. And as a pastor, and even as a youth pastor, which it's harder to get kids and teenagers to talk than it is adults most of the time. I've just done it a lot. I've done so much pastoral counseling with people. I mean, every week for years and years and years and years, you sort of learn, what it takes. I didn't know I was good at interviewing. I launched a podcast right before I got sick with COVID. And I ended up putting a pause on the podcast because I started doing the true crime stuff. But I started interviewing these people. I'd never interviewed anybody like that. And everybody kept, like the people I was interviewing, kept sending me messages. And these were really big name people in the Christian world. And they would email me and they're like, we've never had anybody that was as good at interviewing people as you. And I'm like, really? Because I'm used to being on the other side of it. I've been told I'm really good at people interviewing me. And I was nervous. I was so insecure about interviewing people. And so I started getting all this feedback. I'm like, I think they're just trying to make me feel better. And then the more I've done it, it's like one of the most popular comments that I get from people. You're really good at interviewing people. So I've learned to just accept it. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm good at interviewing.
Well, you are. And the thing is that what I like about the way you interview is, and even in your, I feel like I'm so short, like you're tall. Okay. It's all right. Is that even if I don't agree with you on something, because obviously everybody's not always going to agree.
That's right.
Your approach is so gracious that I'm like, I don't really agree with him, but I can't get mad at you.
Yeah.
So it's your style, not only of interviewing, but you really are like the best interviewer, I have to say. But it's also your style of presenting, even if you're presenting on Faith Friday ministry and there are people that don't believe, there are people that don't even believe in God. That's right. I've even seen people say they're a witch or whatever, but you're so gracious that the people stand by and they're still wanting to learn more. Yeah. So kudos to you for that.
Oh, thank you. It's that way most of the time. It's hard whenever you're on the internet. I think it's something that you and I have had. Amy Heights is amazing. Yeah, I think it's some things you and I've had some conversations about. When you're subjecting yourself to be online 6 days a week, like I am, for 3 hours or more a day, 18 hours, 20 hours a week, and the true version of you is going to come out, which means your good moods are going to come out, your bad moods are going to come out. And I try to be really gracious. I try to lead with love. I try to create an environment where everybody's welcome. There are times where I got hit with 14 emails and 7 clip channels and 14 bad things about me, and then I go on live right after I hear all those to do a stream, and there's just a couple comments that get to me, and I unfortunately respond inappropriately. And I try to correct and apologize when I do that. But thank you so much for saying that. I try to create a equal playing ground where it's like you don't have to believe what we believe to be a part of it, but at the same time I'm not shying away from it, which was a point of conversation yesterday. It's like I'm not
Right.
going to shy away from what I believe. You don't have to believe that to be a part of it, and some people choose to be offended about that when they really shouldn't.
And the thing is, I can see, and now that we're just being totally honest with each other, you do have a little, we say in Spanish, fósforo. It's like a little match. You have a
Yeah.
little, and I do, oh, honey, but the little where you could get a little short fuse, I
Yeah.
can see that. But you
Yeah.
always, even if you have a little, you pull back,
Yeah.
and I see you literally go, and then you plow forward. You don't let it escalate. So it's real.
Yeah.
I think it's really good role modeling, because it would be
Yeah.
so fake. You got up here all the time, just
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want
And
to
I
thank.
think there's times where you got to like put boundaries up. That's such an important thing in the YouTube world. It's like there's certain things we just don't cross. And I think it's important to know those things. And so it's like, we're not going to talk like that. We're not going to have a toxic environment in the chat. We're going to keep it uplifting, positive, and encouraging. We're willing to have difference of opinions. That can't become personal. There's people's feelings and emotions that are attached to this. And I feel like my job, especially for the folks that are a part of Faith Friday, is to protect them and guard them from unknowingly opening themselves up to something that could hurt them. And toxicity, people handle it differently, and some people, we've seen this early on my channel, largely in part due to the Gabby Petito case, were literally in life or death situations because of abuse that they were
Mhm,
experiencing. And
mhm.
there's so many stories I can't even talk about, just to guard their dignity,
Sure.
that
Yeah.
we paid for and helped them get out of DV situations. I have pictures of people from our channel that are bruised head to toe, and we facilitated opportunities for them to get into safety. And so when we have people come in our chat and are picking on people in the chat and being disrespectful, I mean, we have to sort of like strike that and say that's not going to be allowed, because it could be the thing that sends them into a swirl they don't need to be in.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. And I mean, I have to be honest with you. And I think there was one time where I went on to some live. I don't even remember when, but somebody was horrible to me, and I literally started to. I went. I started to cry, and then I pulled myself. But it literally did kind of bring me to tears. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm a sensitive person, but you know, it can be very hurtful. It can be
exactly.
very, very hurtful.
Exactly
Now,
right.
there are a couple things. Okay, so I'm just so grateful. I can't even. I see that my daughter Francesca is like thanking people, and she can read and talk very fast, and I'm historically a very slow reader. And I wanted to ask you, Tyler. We talked a little bit over the past many weeks about the whole Idaho 4,
Yeah.
some of the risk factors, and I actually did a whole little thing on the parenting of the late adolescent, young adult, college age child, and how we as parents have to, unfortunately, we have to sort of give our kids roots to grow and then wings to fly away. And
Yeah.
sometimes that means making choices that we would not make for
Yeah.
ourselves, especially in this very sort of libertine culture that we live
That's right.
in. And I feel part of my role, and I believe I'm echoing you in some sense, is to be a voice within true crime, not only just to shine light on, oh, this person was arrested, okay, now they're having this, okay, now look at the car, the launcher, the this, or that, but to hopefully talk about learning opportunities,
Yeah.
prevention,
Yeah.
how to parent differently or better, how do we help our child navigate their way through life.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you to give us a few minutes of, I don't want any just, not non-disclosure. No, just in general. You said something to me on one of your lives the other week, saying something about the middle school child.
Mhm.
And if you plant seeds as a parent, could you talk? Do you remember talking to me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you talk about that for a minute?
Well, I was a youth pastor for a long time, and it's really hard. Like, one of the things that happens when you have a growing youth ministry, it was like 6th grade through 12th grade what we had. It was really hard to figure out which age group should we cater to, because and I did it for a while. I was catering to the 11th and 12th graders, Well, the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that were coming, it's not the right environment for them. But if I go down to the 7th or 8th graders, I mean, the high school kids don't want to be there either. And
Right.
so, do we split them? How do I handle it? What's the most important thing that I need to do? And so, I went on a deep dive researching it. I was reading child development books. I was listening to other ministers. I was listening to people talk about it. And the most wisdom that I got was actually from the owner of Chick-fil-A. He said that the most important age for us to minister to is actually like that 8th grade age, 13, 14 years old, because it's in that time frame that they're sort of deciding the worldview in which they're going to live by. I found that to be really important. So he said, he's like, at my church, I teach 8th grade Sunday school class because I know that if we can get them to choose that worldview, then that even when they're older, they might in high school get a little wonky, depart from it. They'll always come back to it. And that's what the Bible says. Train up a child in the way in which they should go. When they're old, they will not depart from it. It doesn't mean that they won't take a wrong turn when they get in high school, but it means that they'll come back to it. And so
Mhm.
I think that age group, personally, from my experience too, 7th, 8th grade time frame is so, so, so important. And there's a young man who's a part of our channel. Sometimes he's on there. He's on there on Faith Fridays. His name's Preston. He's been an amazing part of my ministry because whenever I first met him, he was in middle school. He was an 8th grade student. He was in a lot of trouble at school, and he ended up becoming, I was a teacher at a school at the time. He ended up coming to our church, accepting Jesus as his savior, and did a complete change. And then when he got in high school, a little bit older, he had a rough patch. But now that he's a young adult, he's went back to what he knew in 8th or 9th grade, which I would sit down at the lunch table with him and his friends and say, okay, quote to me Romans chapter 8. I was teaching them to memorize the Bible, even as their school teacher. Like, hey, let's talk about the Bible. What did you guys memorize? Let's talk about what you're doing. It was like a crash course in like implanting these ideas and these worldviews in their heart. And then he did kind of stray away from it whenever he was in high school, but now he's back. He's serving in ministry, has an amazing wife and a son that they're all
Wow.
sold out to their church and ministry. So and so there's just one example of many that I can give you of folks where that's happened. And so from my perspective too, when you think about sort of the thing that kids want, it's like if you go to the theme park and you sit down in a roller coaster and you put that little thing down, what's
Mhm.
the first thing you do? You want to sort of like buck against it because you want to make sure that you have a little wiggle room, but when you
Right.
move, it's going to stop. I think a lot of times what kids and students want is for there to be a guardrail. They want a little wiggle room, but when they begin to move, they want to know that there's a boundary there, or somebody there that's providing a safety mechanism. So that's not really about college age students, but that's a little bit younger
No, no,
of
no, that's okay. No, 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 because that first of all, that's a great metaphor
yeah.
or imagery for me. Even just think about putting that seatbelt or that little thing on, and yes, you're absolutely right. Pushing against it and then knowing that it's going to hold you in. I think that's a great imagery. I wanted to ask you. Well, I'm going to say a couple of things in a minute. Just a little bit about situational safety and some of the things that I know my children and a lot of my patients in the college age group experience in terms of risk, going from low risk
Yeah.
behavior and zipping right up into high risk.
Yeah.
And how do we prevent that? But I wanted to ask you, when you went to college, did you belong to a fraternity?
So I did not belong to a fraternity, although I was very familiar with the Greek culture. I was a part of a group called Chi Alpha, which is a Christian organization that sort of sort of mimics fraternity and sorority life, but we didn't have housing, and it was a Christian organization. We would gather every week and have services, and we did mission projects around the world and that kind of thing. It's very well known. People know about it. It's part of the Assemblies of God denomination, but it's called Chi Alpha. But I understood the Greek culture at the university that I went to. I went to school in Springfield, Missouri, at Missouri State University, and there's another university there called Drury, where one of my best friends from high school went, and it's that Greek culture was like the ones you see on TV, and I'd spent some time on that campus as well, and caught a little bit of the vibe of the Greek culture there, and it's much different. I mean, it's a much different culture than it seems like the rest of college students are experiencing. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. No, it is, and I also think that I had invited this other gentleman on who was a fraternity member. I think he's in about his 40s in Colorado, and he had a lot of positive experiences, but he had some negative, and he was going to come on tonight. I don't know what happened, but that's all right. But one point that he made in my comment section is that it really depends on what percentage of the campus is Greek life, and how rigorous are the academics versus the partying, and and how deeply committed is somebody to spending a lot of time doing that. So I mean, to me, and you never, and one thing I really appreciate about you is you never want to, you have sort of a policy of never naming names of people under the 18-year-old because they're minor child. And I think we have to be very careful about, victim blaming. But at the same time, I do think that we have to look at, are there life lessons, even if this fraternity and sorority Greek life had nothing to do with Bryan Kohberger. I still think that there's, for me, life lessons that can be taken away. For instance, locking your doors at night. They did everything correctly, these young people, in the night of, for the most part. But the problem is, for me, is that and I dealt with this, I see this all the time in my practice, is that the young people that are at college, they might live with a group in an apartment or a house or whatever. And just because they have a certain idea that they're going to lock the door and they want the door locked, the 10 other people may say, no, this is Freedom Hall, and we're going to have anybody and their brother coming and going. And I think if there was any sort of siren, so to speak, or alarm, in my mind, red flag, about the University of Idaho, what I was seeing, even with the police cams and whatnot, is this sort of almost chaotic coming and going of people. And it just felt almost out of control. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that house is strategically positioned there on purpose. They can get a premium price on the rent, probably because it's close enough to campus that it feels like on-campus housing without having to have the rules or restrictions of what it means to be a dry campus, which means it's the hot spot for all of the parties that take place. And so whoever's getting that house is doing it likely with the intention that I want this to be a house where we're going to throw parties. It sounds like the owner of the house was renting it at times even from a per room basis, which means a group of guys from a fraternity or a group of girls from a sorority would sort of like put their mark on it and then would fill it with their little sis, which we learned in the case in this house. Upstairs was big sis, downstairs was little sis in the sorority. And it was sort of becoming that, right off of campus in walking distance party house that people were coming and going from, which isn't that unusual of a culture. It's an unfortunate one, but it's not that unusual of a culture in the college world. I don't know about if they were locking the doors or not. My sort of my thought would be there hadn't been a homicide in 7 years. We don't know what happened with Hudson Lindo, which was one of the students from Sigma Chi that had died the year before. I'm curious about that to see if there's some investigation into that a little bit deeper, or at least why they came up with the fact that it was an accident. But there's some things that I would like to unpack in that situation. But I think they probably felt relatively safe and had been living on the campus of University of Idaho or nearby for their whole course of college career, and they were about to graduate. So I think they probably felt pretty safe. Like, I think they weren't worried or concerned.
I think you're right. Marlena Cantu just mentioned the whole concept of social media. And the fact that so many young people have so much, they give out so much information. My younger sister is a journalist, and she talks about social media. She calls it that we live in a confessional society. That people just tell everything, including what they weigh, who their boyfriend is, what they wear, or whatever. And I think even the Zillow, I think I spoke to you about that when the whole idea that apartment was on Zillow or whatever, and you could literally do a walkthrough, and so therefore you lose your privacy just by renting that particular house. If a rental house or a for sale house is on the internet, and then suddenly you're able to see everything that's inside. So I think that's a whole nother thing. I think, Marlena, you're right, that Yeah, social media is a wonderful thing, but
That's right.
it can become very risky. Somebody asked, why is my name Doctora Salerno? Okay, my name is Amy Salerno. I'm also known as Doctora Latina. I am here talking about a confessional society. So my mother's side of the family was from Argentina, and my father's people from Italia. So we speak Espanol, Italiano, and I've always worked for the past 30 some odd years. My whole day, my whole life is in Spanish, including up until recently at home. We were bilingual, but mostly only Spanish until a couple of years ago.
Wow.
And so that's why everybody always calls me my whole life. I've never gone by Dr. Salerno. I've always gone by Doctora. Or if we have Italian patients, they'll say Doctoressa. So Doctora Latina is, I don't know. I just picked that as, I was trying to come up with something, and that's what I picked a couple of years ago. So I'm Doctora Latina.
I love it.
I hope that helped whoever was asking.
I love it. I thought it was funny that Laura was calling you Dr. Dre, which is a rapper.
I get that a lot. I get that, Dr. Dre. I know.
I was like, what?
Yeah,
it's not her name. She's not a rapper.
Right. So anyway, here's his name. Oh, Truth and Transparency is here. Hello, Truth and Allegedly Innocent is here. Oh my goodness. Should we invite somebody out, like one of them to come up, do you think?
It's up to you. It's your channel.
Well, how do I
run the show?
Well, how do I do it?
That's a great, you have to say, if you want the link, email me. And then when they email you, you guys send them the link.
Well, I have their emails. So if I email you the link, do you want to come up? No? I don't know how to, my daughter might remember how to do it. Then I had these banners. Hold on. Let me see if I made a banner. Let's see if this comes up first. This is a little, I told everybody, this is a little experimental. It worked.
There it is.
That's the first banner. And then I have another banner for you, Tyler, but that's going to come up in a few minutes. But how do I get Francesca? Could you help Mama? She's upstairs, but I think she can hear me. Let me see. Titi. She's coming. Okay. The two people that I want to invite to come up on the panel.
I think you just take the links that you sent me. And Tyler, you could just copy paste those and.
Can you help me with that?
I'm not getting in front of the camera.
You don't have to get in front of the camera. Oh, we could turn the camera off.
No, just go here.
Okay.
Go to your email.
Go to my email. Okay.
And then just
Truth and Transparency says, I'm watching a movie. Can I rain check?
She can rain check, yes. How about Allegedly Innocent?
They said, I'll come say hello.
Okay.
So where did you send me?
I have to go into send.
So just take. So see where you send. Or just take where you sent Tyler's.
No, I don't see it.
Where did you send it from?
I don't remember. How do I get back?
Just click back.
Click here.
You sent it to me from Amy.Salermo.
Wait, can you send? Oh, can you send it to Allegedly Innocent?
I've never even heard of Allegedly Innocent.
You have to know Allegedly Innocent.
So I cannot send it to her because I don't know.
She's brilliant. She's a PhD psychologist. And this woman is like, she can walk circles around or run circles around everybody. She's brilliant and amazing.
I don't know where you.
Okay, where did
I could. I'm trying to figure out. Oh, invite.
Oh, invite.
I'm dumb.
Okay, invite.
So
okay,
you could just copy, and then you could just go back to your email and send it to her.
Right here to my email?
Yeah, email there, sure.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Tyler, you want to keep the party going while I'm doing this?
What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for joining Dr. Latina's very first ever stream. One of the best ways to help her out is if you hit the like button. That's going to help shoot her into the YouTube algorithm. And I promise you, she has a very important voice that needs to be heard in this season. She is a Christian, and not only that, she's a medical doctor. And especially like if you think about the Kylie Rodney case, we need somebody with that expertise to deep dive into it. And then I'm sure in this case, there's going to be some forensic information that she's going to have an expertise on. But beyond that, she has a voice of wisdom. She's a voice of encouragement. And so we definitely need people to know what she's doing and support her. And I just want to, on her behalf, say thank you for everybody who's sending a super chat in and supporting her channel just as a show of appreciation. I'm seeing a lot of the Feller fam in there wanting to just encourage and cheer her on. That warms my heart to know that there's people that are a part of what we're doing on my channel that also want to see other people succeed. That's really what we believe in, seeing people succeed. Now, as we've said that, I'm interested in knowing, as you guys are watching, as we're deep diving into this case, a couple of thoughts that I have. Have you made up your mind of what you think the killer's motive is? Do you think he had an accomplice? Do you think his parents knew what happened? Very curious and interesting.
I'm going to interrupt just for 1 second. I couldn't figure out what we call her Jules from Allegedly Innocent, so I put it up in the chat, the StreamYard. So that StreamYard connection is for Jules from Allegedly Innocent. Okay, I'll hush now. Go ahead. Ask your question again.
Well, I'm just filling time while you were doing that.
You do that so well. You do